Hey everyone, welcome to today's Explainer. So we're exploring a hidden world today that basically wakes up right as we're all winding down. You know, when the sun sets and most of us head indoors for the night, a whole new shift of wildlife is literally just clocking in. We're talking about the reptile night shift. We're going to break down exactly what goes on in the wild, and honestly, potentially right in your very own backyard when the world goes dark.
Now, you've probably experienced this at some point. You step outside, maybe to grab something you left on the patio, or you're just taking a late evening stroll, and you hear it. That sudden, kind of mysterious rustle in the dark grass. It really begs the question, right? Do reptiles actually move at night? Okay, let's dive into this, because the answer is a resounding yes. But it's not just some random occurrence. Whether a reptile is active during the day or the night is actually a highly calculated behavior, and it depends entirely on two things: their specific species and the exact environment they live in.
Which brings us to Section 1, Nature's Biological Clocks. Because out here, timing is everything. To really understand that rustle in the grass, we have to look at how nature actually schedules its shifts. Reptiles don't just wander around aimlessly, right? They're strictly governed by their biological programming. First up, we've got our true night owls, nocturnal reptiles. Take a look at these examples. We're primarily talking about geckos, a lot of snakes, and certain types of lizards. They have quite literally evolved to thrive in the dark. They use the cover of night as their absolute main window for moving around, feeding, and, well, surviving.
Then, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, we have diurnal reptiles. These are your absolute sun lovers, the guys active primarily during the daylight hours. If you've ever seen your typical garden lizard just basking on a warm rock or an iguana soaking up those midday rays, you are looking at diurnal behavior in action. For them, the daytime sun isn't just nice to have, it's the critical energy source that dictates their entire day. But, nature rarely operates strictly in black and white.
And that brings us to our third category, completing our biological clock trio. We've got crepuscular reptiles. This is the twilight shift. These creatures are active during those magical, kind of in-between hours of dawn and dusk. Some specific snakes and turtles fall perfectly right into this category. They totally avoid the absolute extremes of the blazing midday sun and the pitch-black night. Instead, they opt for the cooler, softly lit transitional periods to get all their work done.
Moving on to Section 2, Why Choose the Dark? The Cold-Blooded Advantage. It's super easy to think of creatures moving in the dark as, just creepy crawlies. But the reality? It's so much more impressive than that. These reptiles are incredibly clever, cold-blooded tacticians, absolutely optimizing their environment to survive and thrive. Let's look at their strategic survival playbook here. Remember, reptiles cannot regulate their internal body temperatures the way we do, so they have to use their environment to do it for them. So the crucial point is how brilliantly they utilize the night. First off, stepping out after dark lets them completely avoid the punishing daytime heat. Second, without that blazing sun beating down, they can conserve their precious water. Third, the darkness provides the ultimate cover, which lets them hunt their prey way more easily. And finally, the night shift helps them avoid their own predators, which, importantly, includes us humans. I mean, it's honestly a masterclass in survival efficiency.
All right, Section 3, After Dark in Assam, a humid case study.
We've talked about the broad scientific why, but let's ground these concepts for a second. Let's look at a hyper-specific geographical example to see what this actually looks like in practice. Picture this: you're in the state of Assam. The sun has just gone down, but the air around you is still warm, thick, and incredibly humid. Now that's an environment that might feel pretty heavy and sticky to us, but for cold-blooded creatures, it is an absolute paradise. Warm and humid places like Assam create the absolute perfect, optimal conditions for really high levels of after-dark reptile activity. And this brilliantly illustrates what a thriving nocturnal ecosystem actually looks like. In this kind of warm, humid environment, you're going to commonly see a very specific set of behaviors. You'll spot geckos purposefully hanging out right near artificial lights at night. Why? Well, because those lights draw in the insects. You'll also find snakes actively moving on the still warm roads or slithering near the dense vegetation after dark. And underneath it all, the sheer abundance of frogs and insects acts as this massive, ringing dinner bell, attracting all sorts of reptile predators. It basically turns into quite the bustling late-night buffet, with the frogs and insects entirely unknowingly starring as the main course.
Which leads us to Section 4, Stepping Out Safely, Navigating Your Backyard.
So what does all of this actually mean for us? If you're walking outside after the sun goes down, here is your easy-to-remember 3-step checklist to make sure everyone stays safe. Step 1. Use a flashlight. Just break the darkness and see exactly where you're stepping.
Step 2. Wear footwear. Look, it sounds incredibly simple, but proper protective shoes are for sure your best first line of defense. And step 3, be highly cautious near any piles of wood, rocks, or waterlogged areas. Remember our cold-blooded tacticians from earlier? Yeah, these areas are their perfect hiding spots, hunting grounds, and shelter. By just knowing where they like to hang out, we can respectfully give them their space. I actually want to leave you with this absolute mic drop of a fact directly from our source material. Most reptiles avoid humans unless disturbed. I mean, that is the golden rule right there. These nocturnal navigators, these brilliant survivors, they aren't out to get us. They're literally just utilizing the cover of night to eat, drink, and survive without overheating. If we don't bother them, they are more than happy to not bother us.
Which leads me to this final question for you to really ponder. How will you share your backyard tonight? The next time you hear that sudden rustle in the dark grass, I hope you don't just feel startled. I hope you feel a little spark of curiosity, knowing exactly the kind of incredible, synchronized biological clockwork that's happening just out of sight. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Stay curious, and hey, stay safe out there in the dark.